Okay, joined now by Alex Newman, our international correspondent. Alex, thanks for joining us as always.
Thanks for having me, Duke. Great to be with you.
Well, we have a really interesting story, and this is one actually, mom and dad, if you have kids in the house or kids in earshot, you might want to remove them for this 10-minute segment because it's really important stuff, but it's really, really graphic. We have a sex education provider. This is a group that has got their fingers in many aspects of your kid's sex education, all of this stuff going on in public schools. And they're now, this lobbying group now touts their sponsor, which is a company designed to making anal sex normative, to encourage anal sex exploration, to teach children how to do it and ways to do it, to provide all sorts of sexual advice with regards to, in their words, the butt. Seducing the butt is one of their mantras. Talk about who this group is and how they're tied to the lobbying group.
Yeah, thank you, Duke. And this story is it's so gross. You really should have a bark bag handy. It is mind-blowing. So SIECUS, it used to be the Sex Information and Education Council of the United States, I believe. Basically the arm of the Kinsey Institute to spread this disgusting propaganda into the public schools, founded decades ago. They have now formed a partnership with a company called B-Vibe. And this is a company that specializes in sodomy. They produce products to encourage sodomy, to supposedly make sodomy fun. They produce webinars, including this one that they were advertising through SIECUS. And so this company, this anal sodomy company, is providing now sponsorship of SIECUS. And so we have a source who was getting emails that are sent out to sex educators all over America, right? These are the people who work in government schools and they teach your children how to have safe sex. And the emails openly say, hey, we're sponsored by V-Vibe or B-Vibe. Go check out B-Vibe. And then you go there and it's like, hey, here's a 6-part webinar about anal sex and all the rest of it. It's absolutely gross. And I mean, it's not surprising to people who know about this stuff, but I think people who kind of just see this at a distance would be shocked and appalled by some of the stuff that this company does and some of the stuff that SIECUS is helping them promote.
Yeah, and this is targeting young kids, right? This is for high school kids, middle school kids. This is a revolution in sex education that's based largely on the work of Kinsey. And I know you've done a lot of work on that. Tie this to what the Kinsey Institute was doing.
Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar with Alfred Kinsey, he's really the father of kind of sex education as it exists today. And so many decades ago, back in the 1950s, he was doing so-called sex research funded by the Rockefeller Foundation and also with links to the Central Intelligence Agency. We found out from Dr. Judith Reisman, who's probably the world's top expert on this. And we've interviewed her for The New American. I interviewed her for a very in-depth investigation I did for the Epoch Times, and she knows more about this guy than anybody. She's written multiple books about him, and one of the things that he did was he did this sex research, and he came out with these 2 books. It was Human Sexuality in Females, or Sexuality in the Human Female, Sexuality in the Human Male. Well, in one of these, the one of the human male, he had these graphs. And what these data tables showed, I think it was table 34, there was also 35, is that Kinsey's so-called researchers were raping little children, some of them as young as 5 months old, 9 months old. And as you look at these data tables, you start realizing what a horrific thing you're seeing. They say, they were stimulating these little babies, these children, for hours on end, in some cases, 24 hours, and then they were counting the number of climaxes that these little babies had. So this is basically child rape on a massive scale. We're talking hundreds, probably thousands of children. And Kinsey gave them stopwatches and trained them how to time how long it was taking between climaxes. And then from these disgusting so-called experiments, they would look at these children and they'd scream and then they'd cry and then they'd pass out and they'd say, oh, look, they're climaxing. And so from this, Kinsey deduced that children must be sexual beings from birth. Therefore, we need to start teaching them about sex as soon as we possibly can, preferably in kindergarten. And hence, SIECUS was born, this disgusting organization that we're talking about, and the whole movement to brainwash children with sex education in public schools.
And after the break, we're going to talk about why anal sex, right? Why anal sex? As a little preview of that, a couple of things that comes to mind for me. One, anal sex is a way of breaking down the evil gender of male and female, right? Not everybody has a penis, not everybody has a vagina, but everyone has in their own terminology, a butt. We'll call it an anus. And so this is a really insidious way to make your kids turn to a kind of sex that's unhealthy, that's dangerous, as a way of social engineering. We'll pick that up right after the break. Alex, one of the most absolutely despicable aspects of this SICUS group is to tell the listeners what's their new mission statement. They rebranded. Now the anagram of their name doesn't really even mean anything. What does SICUS stand for?
Well, they tell you it's actually now SICUS, Sex Education for Social Change. And they're not kidding.
Sex education for social change. Mom and Dad, are you listening to this? This is not about biology. This is not about health. This is not about teaching your kids to protect themselves sexually. If we wanted to teach your kids to protect themselves sexually, we would be warning them away from anal sex. We are encouraging it now, not because it's safer or healthier, but because it is sociologically useful to the progressive left. I mentioned at the end of the last segment that boys have penises, girls have vaginas, but everybody has a butt. And if you can transform sex away from traditional heterosexual normative sex to anal intercourse, you've obliterated gender and sex distinctions. That's part of what they're doing here. Also looming behind this is the incredibly ubiquitous, incredibly powerful LGBTQ organizations and their propaganda, which is to make heterosexual sex seem dangerous. Heterosexual sex might give you a baby. And in the modern day sex education, a baby is akin to a virus. You get pregnant. The purpose of sex is not conception. The purpose of sex is to avoid conception. And what's the one surefire way you can make sure you can have all the sex you want, all the penetrative sex you want, and never encounter a baby? Anal intercourse.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Duke. And there's a whole other component to this as well, and that is population control. When you look at the major foundations, the major organizations, including the United Nations, by the way, that are promoting this agenda, this indoctrination of children into this anything goes kind of sex, if you want to call it that, they have an obsession with reducing the number of people on the planet. And they know the more children they can persuade to be homosexuals, transgenders, whatever, pick your thing, the more people aren't going to settle down, aren't going to start a family, aren't going to raise children, aren't going to pass on cultural values to the next generation. There's a very deliberate and a very insidious agenda here. And it's not very hard to find. Now, I think Kinsey was just a pervert of the highest order. He just thought, all these social mores surrounding sexuality, the idea of, we save that for marriage, that's all just outdated, and we should just have anything goes. But there are other agendas here, too, and I think population control is one of the key ones. You mentioned, you don't produce babies using sodomy, and that's true. I think they deliberately promote it for that reason. In fact, they've been very clear about that. And what we're seeing now, you mentioned the blurring of gender lines. We've reported this at the Newman Report at Freedom Project Media on many occasions. 27% a couple years ago of California's children between 12 and 17 now identify as gender non-conforming, right? So they're boys who don't accept that they're boys, girls who don't accept that they're girls. Something like 50% of millennials, depending on what poll you look at now, identify as some letter in the LGBT rainbow spectrum, right? These are all young people who are not going to end up having children. They're not going to end up raising a next generation. And that really provides a clean slate for the social engineers to come in and do whatever they want. It's extremely dangerous. And I think it's literally a threat to our civilization, right? It's more than just perverted sex and these kids getting diseases and ruining their future families. It's even more insidious than that.
Yeah, the flip side of population control is anti-family. This is 100% anti-mom, dad, and children. This is an attack on this fundamental building block of culture and civilization, and theologically. This is a complete attempt to erase that. We've got about a minute or so left, Alex. Give us some specifics of this program. What kind of things are they offering students, young kids, to make them more interested or more willing to perform anal intercourse?
Yeah, so they have this 6-part anal sex webinar that they're offering by a lady called, I think, Luna Matata or something like that. And as you read through, it's different things that you can do, why it's so fun, and one of the worst things I think Christians will be appalled is they're mocking Christmas, right? They say it's we're going to celebrate Buttmas instead of Christmas, right? Christmas is a time for Christians to celebrate the birth of Christ. These people here are making jokes about sodomy, and these people are financing the organization organization that's providing the sex education, that's lobbying our state legislatures and even our federal government to push this on younger and younger children. They hate Christianity, they hate traditional values, and they are indoctrinating tens of millions of children all across this country.
Even as Christmas pageants and even Merry Christmas is being scathed, being absolutely eradicated from our public schools, they're welcoming in Merry Buttmas, right? Let's use Christmas time to promote sodomy. Alex, it's almost impossible to make this stuff up. We appreciate your time today. Hey guys, most of you know that our little Dr. Duke show is being hidden and demonetized by the creepy crawlers at YouTube and Facebook. Sadly, this impacts our long-term ability to produce the kind of quality show that you've gotten used to. So we've decided to tackle the problem by launching our own new Patriot Club. Yes, for 99 tax-deductible dollars once a year, 99, you will not only keep our show going, but we'll ship you this fabulous stainless steel tumbler, etched with the American flag and the words, "Freedom never tasted so good." Visit patriotclub.us and become a Patriot member today. That's patriotclub.us to support our show and to drink from the font of freedom.